Welcome back. Now, the lack of a coherent national policy document on maternity protection is making it quite difficult for employers to know what they can do when a woman has a baby. Now, that's according to researchers from the University of the Western Cape. They have identified more than 20 national policy documents from various government departments that do address the different components of maternity protection. But to talk more about this, we're now joined by one of the researchers, Pereira-Kotze, who is currently in London, but of course was kind enough to join us for this conversation. Catherine, thank you for your time and good morning to you. I think before we get into some of the fragments and the gaps that we're seeing when it comes to this particular topic, what does a comprehensive maternity protection look like? What does it include?
Thanks very much, Tumelo. And that's a good question because when we talk about maternity protection, many people think about maternity leave and receiving your salary or cash payments while on maternity leave. But comprehensive maternity protection also includes breastfeeding breaks or a time to breastfeed or express your child when a woman returns to work, as well as non-discrimination, employment protection and job security, and health protection and medical benefits during pregnancy and when a woman returns to work.
Yeah, and that's important to understand because the reality is some women find themselves in positions where they have to choose between working and having a baby or raising a baby or even breastfeeding their baby.
Definitely. And we shouldn't be living in a time where a woman has to choose between those things. And there are certain legal entitlements that women should be able to access around the time of childbirth and when they are pregnant or breastfeeding.
Yeah. So tell me about the fragmentations that you've identified there, Catherine.
So we've been researching this for the past 5 years, and it's taken quite a bit of time to establish all of the different documents in South African law and policy that describe maternity protection. So many people will be familiar with the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, which is set by the National Department of Employment and Labour. But there's actually a number of other different policy documents that cover other parts of legislation and labour rights that women are entitled to. And we identified 24 different policy documents. Also, the Department of Health and the National Department of Social Development have certain policies that address some of the issues. But I mean, the fact that we've been investigating this for quite a bit of time, and I've got a strong interest in this, but I've needed to consult with legal experts and lawyers to even understand what is in these documents. Laws and legislative policy documents are written with a different kind of language. And if you think about a mother who has just had a baby, she's got so many things to think about. For her to now figure out what she should be entitled to when she goes on maternity leave or when she has her baby, it would be really nice if all of this information was available in one place and was a bit easier to access and understand.
Yeah, so from a company's point of view, are they finding it difficult to choose from which of the 20 departmental policy documents to implement in their companies?
Well, you see, companies generally have human resources departments and people who have a bit of expertise and are quite familiar with these laws and have been trained on what should be implemented. And many women who work for companies sometimes have their own policies that are sometimes stronger than our national law and legislation. So, for example, in South Africa, maternity leave should be 4 months, but our laws don't make it mandatory that that 4 months should be paid. Many women do get paid maternity leave, but some women have to claim and contribute to the National Unemployment Insurance Fund, and there's many challenges related to that. So companies might have policies that go above and beyond national laws and legislation. It becomes a bit trickier when you have women who are either self-employed or working in more informal arrangements. For example, domestic workers where they work in a household and their employer is an individual who might not be familiar with all these laws and legislations.
Yeah. So with that being said, then what are some of your recommendations, Catherine, just to ensure that all women can access all components of the comprehensive maternity protection?
Okay, so there's quite a few recommendations. Firstly, the National Department of Employment and Labour needs to do a bit more awareness and advocacy around what is in the current laws and policies, and even just implementing the current laws and policies that are available would go a long way for many women to access these rights. Then employers and employees also need to know what they're entitled to, but it's more the responsibility of the employer to know what they should be making available to workers. And also, I mean, there's a number of areas where the law could be strengthened. So, for example, in South Africa, if we had it's mandatory that maternity leave should be paid, that would also go a long way to supporting women. And one other gap that we identified in the legislation is that at the moment, we have a code of good practice that recommends that women should be entitled to breaks to breastfeed or express breast milk to feed their children, but that is not legally enforceable. So we're also recommending that it should be part of law that women should be entitled to at least 1 or 2 breaks to express or to breastfeed their babies, because many women stop breastfeeding when they go back to work. And in South Africa, we have quite low rates of breastfeeding.
Absolutely. And just before I let you go, because we've been talking more from the women's perspective, we also understand there's been some work done, right, to progress paternity and parental leave in South Africa, Catherine. But is this enough, just in terms of shared caregiving responsibility?
Yeah, so recently in 2017 or 2018, the Labour Laws Amendments Bill was amended so that there was 10 days of paternity or parental leave. And in a country like South Africa, this refers also to people who might be adopting a child. But for parental and paternity leave to support women, this means that men also need to be more involved in the child and caregiving responsibilities. And we do want to ensure that paternity leave and parental leave is available, but we also need to ensure that women are being protected. And we have a situation where the woman who is delivering the baby and is responsible for breastfeeding and being pregnant to carry the baby to term is receiving the rights and entitlements that she should be getting as well.
All right. Well, I appreciate this conversation taking place this morning and you joining me for it. Thank you so much, Catherine Pereira-Kotze, UWC PhD candidate in public health. And of course, Catherine is a researcher there.